5, Part 1 of the Aeneid. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joseph Early, Falls Church, Virginia. The Aeneid, by Publius Virgilius Maro. Translated by John Dryden. Book 5, Games and a Conflagration, Part 1. Meantime the Trojan cuts his wat'ry way, fix'd on his voyage through the curling sea. Then, casting back his eyes with dire amaze, sees on the Punic shore the mounting blaze. The cause unknown, yet his presaging mind the fate of Dido from the fire divin'd. He knew the stormy souls of womankind, what secret springs their eager passions move, how capable of death for injur'd love. Dire auguries from thence the Trojans draw, till neither fires nor shining shores they saw. Now seas and skies their prospect only bound, an empty space above, a floating field around. But soon the heavens with shadows were o'erspread, a swelling cloud hung hov'ring o'er their head. Livid it look'd, the threat'ning of a storm; then night and horror ocean's face deform. The pilot, Palinurus, cried aloud, "What gusts of weather from that gath'ring cloud my thoughts presage! Ere yet the tempest roars, stand to your tackle, mates, and stretch your oars. Contract your swelling sails, and luff to wind." The frighted crew perform'd the task assign'd. Then to his fearless chief, "Not heav'n," said he, "tho' Jove himself should promise Italy, can stem the torrent of this raging sea. Mark how the shifting winds from west arise, And what collected night involves the skies. Nor can our shaken vessels live at sea, Much less against the tempest force their way. 'Tis fate diverts our course, and fate we must obey. Not far from hence, if I observ'd aright The southing of the stars and polar light, Sicilia lies, whose hospitable shores In safety we may reach with struggling oars." Aeneas then replied, "Too sure I find we strive in vain against the seas and wind. Now shift your sails. What place can please me more than what you promise, the Sicilian shore, whose hallow'd earth Anchises' bone contains, and where a prince of Trojan lineage reigns?" The course resolv'd, before the western wind They scud amain, and make the port a sign. Meanwhile Acestes from a lofty stand Beheld the fleet descending on the land, And, not unmindful of his ancient race, Down from the cliff he ran with eager pace, And held the hero in a strict embrace. Of a rough Libyan bear the spoils he bore, And either hand a pointed javelin bore. His mother was a dame of Dardan blood, His sire Crinisus, a Sicilian flood. He welcomes his returning friends ashore, With plenteous country cates and homely store. Now, when the following morn had chased away the flying stars, And light restor'd the day, Aeneas call'd the Trojan troops around, And thus bespoke them from a rising ground: "Offspring of heav'n, divine Dardanian race, the sun revolving through th' ethereal space, the shining circle of the year has filled, Since first this isle my father's ashes held. And now the rising day renews the year, a day forever sad, forever dear. This would I celebrate with annual games, with gifts on altars piled and holy flames, though banished to Gaetulia's barren sands, caught on the Grecian seas or hostile lands. But since this happy storm our fleet has driven, not, as I deem, without the will of heaven, upon these friendly shores and flowery plains, which hide Anchises and his blest remains, let us with joy perform his honors due, and pray for prosperous winds our voyage to renew. Pray that in towns and temples of our own the name of great Anchises may be known, and yearly games may spread the gods' renown. Our sports, Acestes of the Trojan race, with royal gifts ordained is pleased to grace. 2 steers on every ship the king bestows. His gods and ours shall share your equal vows. Besides, if 9 days hence the rosy morn shall with unclouded light the skies adorn, that day with solemn sports I mean to grace. Like galleys on the seas shall run a watery race. Some shall in swiftness for the goal contend, and others try the twanging bow to bend. The strong with iron gauntlets arm'd shall stand, opposed in combat on the yellow sand. Let all be present at the games prepar'd, and joyful victors wait the just reward. But now assist the rites with garlands crown'd. He said, and first his brows with myrtle bound, then Helymus by his example led, and old Acestes each adorned his head. Thus young Ascanius with a sprightly grace his temples tied, and all the Trojan race. Aeneas then advanced amidst the train, by thousands followed through the fruitful plain, to great Anchises' tomb, which when he found, he poured to Bacchus on the hallowed ground 2 bowls of sparkling wine, of milk to more, and 2 from offered bulls of purple gold. With roses then the sepulchre he strode, and thus his father's ghost spoke aloud. Hail, O ye holy mourners, hail again! Paternal ashes now reviewed in vain. The gods permitted not that you with me should reach the promised shores of Italy, or Tiber's flood, what flood soe'er it be. Scarce had he finished, when, with speckled pride, a serpent from the tomb began to glide. His hugy bulk on 7 high volumes rolled. Blue was his breath of back, but streaked with gold. Thus, riding on his curls, he seemed to pass a rolling fire along, and singe the grass. More various colours through his body run, than Iris with her bow imbibes the sun. Betwixt the rising altars and around, the sacred monster shot along the ground. With harmless play amidst the bowls he passed, and with his lolling tongue essayed the taste. Thus, fed with holy food, the wondrous guest within the hollow tomb retired to rest. The pious prince, surprised at what he viewed, the funeral honours with more zeal renewed, doubtful if this the place's genius were, or guardian of his father's sepulchre. 2 sheep, according to the rites, he slew, as many swine and steers of sable hue. New generous wine he from the goblets poured, and called his father's ghost from hell restored. The glad attendants in long order come, offering their gifts at great Anchises' tomb. Some add more oxen, some divide the spoil, some place the chargers on the grassy soil, some blow the fire, and offered entrails broiled. Now came the day desired. The skies were bright with rosy lustre of the rising light. The bord'ring people, rous'd by sounding fame Of Trojan feasts and great Acestes' name, the crowded shore with acclamations fill, Part to behold, and part to prove their skill. And first the gifts in public view they place, Green laurel wreaths and palm the victor's grace. Within the circle arms and tripods lie, Ingots of gold and silver heap'd on high, And vests embroider'd of the Tyrian dye. The trumpet's clangor then the feast proclaims, And all prepare for their appointed games. 4 galleys first with equal rowers bear, Advancing in the watery lists appear. The speedy dolphin that outstrips the wine-born Nestus, author of the Mamaean kind. Gyas the vast Chimera's bulk commands, Which rising like a towering city stands. 3 Trojans tug at every lab'ring oar, 3 banks in 3 degrees the sailors bore. Beneath their sturdy strokes the billows roll. Sergestus, who began the Sergian race, In the great Centaur took the leading place. Cloanthus on the sea-green Scylla stood, From whom Cluenthius draws his Trojan blood. Far in the sea, against the foaming shore, There stands a rock, the raging billows roar Above his head in storms, but when 'tis clear, Uncurl their ridgy backs, and at his foot appear. In peace below the gentle waters run, The cormorants above lie basking in the sun. On this the hero fix'd an oak in sight, The mark to guide the mariners aright. To bear with this, the seamen stretch their oars, Then round the rock they steer, and seek the former shore. The lots decide their place. Above the rest, each leader shining in his Tyrian vest, the common crew with wreaths of poplar boughs Their temples crown, and shade their sweaty brows. Besmear'd with oil their naked shoulders shine, All take their seats, and wait the sounding sign. They grip their oars, and every panting breast Is rais'd by turns by hope, by turns with fear depress'd. The clangor of the trumpet gives the sign. At once they start, advancing in a line. With shouts the sailors rend the starry skies, Lash'd with their oars the smoky billows rise. Sparkles the briny main, and the vexed ocean fries. Exact in time, with equal strokes they row. At once the brushing oars and brazen prow Dash up the sandy waves, and ope the depths below. Not fiery coursers in a chariot race Invade the field with half so swift a pace, Nor the fierce driver with more fury lends The sounding lash, and ere the stroke descends, Low to the wheels his pliant body bends. The partial crowd their hopes and fears divide, And aid with eager shouts the favourite side. Cries, murmurs, clamours, with a mixing sound, From woods to woods, from hills to hills rebound. Amidst the loud applauses of the shore, Gyas outstripp'd the rest, and sprung before. Cloanthus, better mann'd, pursued him fast, But his o'er-masted galley check'd his haste. The Centaur and the Dolphin brush'd the brine With equal oars, advancing in a line. And now the mighty Centaur seems to lead, And now the speedy Dolphin gets ahead. Now board to board the rival vessels row, The billows lave the skies, and ocean groans below. They reach the mark. Proud Gyas and his train in triumph rode, The victors of the main. But, steering round, he charg'd his pilot stand More close to shore, and skim along the sand. Let others bear to sea. Menoetes heard, But secret shelves too cautiously he fear'd, and fearing sought the deep, and still aloof he steer'd. With louder cries the captain call'd again, "Bear to the rocky shore, and shun the main." He spoke, and speaking, at his stern he saw the bold Cloanthus near the shelvings draw. Betwixt the mark and him the Scylla stood, and in a closer compass plow'd the flood. He pass'd the mark, and wheeling got before. Gyas blasphemed the gods, devoutly swore, cried out for anger, and his hair he tore. Mindless of others' lives, so high was grown his rising rage, and careless of his own. The trembling dotard to the deck he drew, then hoisted up, and overboard he threw. This done, he seized the helm, his fellows cheer'd, turned short upon the shelves, and madly steer'd. Hardly his head the plunging pilot rears, clogg'd with his clothes, and cumber'd with his years. Now, dripping wet, he climbs the cliff with pain. The crowd that saw him fall and float again shout from the distant shore, and loudly laugh to see his heaving breast disgorge the briny craft. The following Centaur and the Dolphin's crew their vanish'd hopes of victory renew. While Gyas lags, they kindle in the race. To reach the mark, Sergestus takes the place. Mnestheus pursues, and while around they wind, comes up, not half his galley's length behind. Then on the deck amidst his mates appear'd, and thus their drooping courage he cheer'd. "My friends, and Hector's followers heretofore, exert your vigour, tug the labouring oar. Stretch to your strokes, my still unconquer'd crew, whom from the flaming walls of Troy I drew. In this our common interest let me find, that strength of hand, that courage of the mind, as when you stemmed the strong Malayan flood, and o'er the Syrtes' broken billows rolled. I seek not now the foremost palm to gain, though yet, but that haughty wish is vain. Let those enjoy it whom the gods ordain. But, to be last, the lags of all the race, redeem yourselves and me from that disgrace." Now, one and all, they lug amain, they row at the full stretch, and shake the brazen prow. The sea beneath them sinks, their lab'ring sides are swell'd, and sweat runs guttering down in tides. Chance aids their daring with unhop'd success. Sergestus, eager with his wheel to press betwixt the rival galley and the rock, shuts up the unwieldy Centaur in the lock. The vessel struck, and with the dreadful shock, her oars she shiver'd, and her head she broke. The trembling rowers from their banks arise, and anxious for themselves renounce the prize. With iron poles they heave her off the shores, and gather from the sea their floating oars. The crew of Mnestheus with elated minds urge their success, and call the willing winds. Then ply their oars, and cut their liquid way in large compass on the roomy sea. As when the dove her rocky hole forsakes, rous'd in a fright, her sounding rings she shakes. The cavern rings with clattering, out she flies, and leaves her callow care, and cleaves the skies. At first she flutters, but at length she springs to smoother flight, and shoots upon her wing. So Mnestheus in the Dolphin cuts the sea, and flying with a force, that force assists his way. Sergestus in the Centaur soon he pass'd, wedged in the rocky shoals, and sticking fast. In vain the victor he with cries implores, and practices to row with shatter'd oars. Then Mnestheus bears with Gyas, and outflies. The ship, without a pilot, yields the prize. Unvanquish'd Scylla now alone remains, her he pursues, and all his vigour strains. Shouts from the fav'ring multitude arise. Applauding echo to the shouts replies. Shouts, wishes, and applause run rattling thro' the skies. These clamours with disdain the Scylla heard, much grudg'd the praise, but more the robb'd reward. Resolv'd to hold their own, they mend their pace, all obstinate to die or gain the race. Rais'd with success, the dolphins swiftly ran, for they can conquer who believe they can. Both urge their oars, and fortune both supplies, and both perhaps had shared an equal prize, when to the seas Cloanthus holds his hand, and succor from the watery powers demand. Gods of the liquid realms on which I roam, if given by you the laurel bind my brow, assist to make me guilty of my vow. A snow-white bull shall on your shore be slain, his offer'd entrails cast into the main, and ruddy wine from golden goblets thrown, your grateful gift and my return shall own. The choir of nymphs and Phorcus from below, with virgin Panopia heard this vow.
And old Portunus, with his breath of hand, pushed on and sped the galley to the land. Swift as a shaft, or winged wing she flies, and darting to the port, obtains the prize. The herald summons all, and then proclaims Cloanthus conqueror of the naval games.
The prince with laurel crowns the victor's head, and 3 fat steers are to his vessel led, the ship's reward, with generous wine beside, and sums of silver which the crew divide. The leaders are distinguish'd from the rest, the victor honour'd with a nobler vest, where gold and purple strive in equal rows, and needlework its happy cost bestows. There Ganymede is wrought with living art, chasing thro' Ida's groves the trembling hart. Breathless he seems, yet eager to pursue, when from aloft descends in open view the bird of Jove, and, sousing on his prey, with crooked talons bears the boy away. In vain, with lifted hands and gazing eyes, his gods behold him soaring through the skies, and dogs pursue his flight with imitated cry. Mnestheus, the second victor, was declared, and summoned there the second prize he shared.
The coat of mail which brave Demoleus bore,
more brave Aeneas from his shoulders tore, in single combat on the Trojan shore. This was ordained for Mnestheus to possess, in war for his defence, for ornament in peace. Rich was the gift, and glorious to behold, but yet so ponderous with its plates of gold, that scarce 2 servants would the weight sustain. Yet, loaded thus, Demoleus o'er the plain pursued, and lightly seized the Trojan train. The third, succeeding to the last reward, 2 goodly bowls of massy silver shared, with figures prominent and richly wrought, and 2 brass cauldrons from Dodona brought.
Thus all, rewarded by the hero's hands, their conquering temples bound with purple bands.
And now Sergestus, clearing from the rock, brought back his galley shattered the shock. Forlorn she looked without attaining oar, and hindered by the vulgar made to shore. As when a snake, surprised upon the road, is crushed athwart her body by the load of heavy wheels, or with a mortal wound her belly bruised and trodden to the ground. In vain with loosened curls she crawls along, yet fierce above she brandishes her tongue, glares with her eyes, and bristles with her scales. But, revelling in the dust, her heart's unsound she trailed. So, slowly to the port the Centaur scales, but what she wants in oars with sails commands. Yet, for his galley saved, the grateful prince is pleased the unhappy chief to recompense. Flolo, the Cretan slave rewards his care, beauteous herself, with lovely twins as fair. From thence his way the Trojan hero bent into the neighb'ring plain, with mountains pent, whose sides were shaded with surrounding wood.
Full in the midst of this fair valley stood a native theatre,
which rising slow by just degrees, o'erlook'd the ground below. High on a sylvan throne the leader sate, a numerous train attend in solemn state. Here those that in the rapid course delight, desire of honour, and the prize invite. The rival runners without order stand, the Trojans mix'd with the Sicilian band. First Nisus with Euryalus appears, Euryalus a boy of blooming years, with sprightly grace and equal beauty crown'd.
Nisus, for friendship to the youth renown'd.
Diores next, of Priam's royal race, then Salius join'd with Patron took their place. But Patron in Arcadia had his birth, and Salius his from Acarnanian earth. When two Sicilian youths, the names of those, swift Helymus and lovely Panopes, both jolly huntsmen, both in forest bred, and owning all Acestes for the head, and several others of ignobler name, whom time has not delivered o'er to fame. To these the hero thus his thoughts explained, in words which general approbation gained. One common largess is for all design'd, the vanquish'd and the victor shall be join'd. 2 darts of polish'd steel and Gnosian wood, a silver-studded axe alike bestow'd. The foremost 3 have olive wreaths decreed. The first of these obtains a stately steed, adorned with trappings, and the next in fame the quiver of an Amazonian dame, with feather'd Thracian arrows well supplied. A golden belt shall gird his manly side, which with a sparkling diamond shall be tied. The third this Grecian helmet shall content, he said. To their appointed base they went, with beating hearts the expected sign received, and starting all at once the barrier leave. Spread out as on the winged winds they flew, and seized the distant goal with greedy view. Shot from the crowd, swift Nisus all o'erpass'd, nor storms nor thunder equal half his haste. The next, but though the next yet far disjoin'd, came Salius and Euryalus behind. Then Helymus, who young Diores plied, step after step, and almost side by side, his shoulders pressing, and in longer space had won, or left at least a dubious race. Now spent, the goal they almost reach at last, when eager Nisus, hapless in his haste, slipped first, and slipping fell upon the plain, soaked with the blood of oxen newly slain. The careless victor had not marked his way, but treading where the treacherous puddle lay, his heels flew up, and on the grassy floor he fell, besmeared with filth and holy gold. Not mindless then Euryalus of thee, nor of the sacred bonds of amity, he strove the immediate rival's hope to cross, and caught the foot of Salius as he rode. So Salius lay extended on the plain. Euryalus springs out the prize to gain, and leaves the crowd. Applauding peals attend the victor to his goal, who vanquished by his friend. Next Helymus, then Diores came, by 2 misfortunes made the third in fame. But Salius enters, and exclaiming loud for justice, deafens and disturbs the crowd, urges his cause may in the court be heard, and pleads the prize is wrongfully conferred. But favour for Euryalus appears, his blooming beauty with his tender years had bribed the judges for the promised prize.
Besides, Diores fills the court with cries, who vainly reaches at the last reward, if the first palm on Salius be conferr'd. Then thus the prince: let no disputes arise, where fortune placed it, I award the prize. But fortune's errors give me leave to mend, at least to pity my deserving friend, he said. And from among the spoils he draws, ponderous with shaggy mane and golden paws, a lion's head. To Salius this he gives. Nisus with envy sees the gift and grieves. If such rewards to vanquished men are due, he said, and falling is to rise by you, what prize may Nisus from your bounty claim, who merited first rewards and fame? In falling both an equal fortune tried, would fortune for my fall so well provide. With this he pointed to his face, and showed his hand, all his habit smeared with blood. The indulgent father of the people smiled, and caused to be produced an ample shield of wondrous art. Didymaon wrought, long since from Neptune's bars in triumph brought. This, given to Nisus, he divides the rest, and equal justice in his gifts expressed. The race thus ended, and rewards bestowed, once more the prince bespeaks the attentive crowd. If there be here whose dauntless courage dare in gauntlet fight with limbs and body bare, his opposite sustain and open, stand forth the champion, and the games renew. 2 prizes I propose, and thus divide: a bull with gilded horns and fillets tied shall be the portion of the conquering chief. A sword and helm shall cheer the loser's grief. Then haughty Dares in the lists appears. Stalking he strides, his head erected bears. His nervous arms the weighty gauntlet wield, and loud applauses echo through the field. Dares alone in combat used to stand, the match of mighty Paris, hand to hand. The same at Hector's funerals undertook gigantic Butes of the Amycian stock, and by the stroke of his resistless hand stretch'd the vast bulk upon the yellow sand. Such Dares was, and such he strode along, and drew the wonder of the gazing throng. His brawny back and ample breast he shows, his lifted arms around his head he throws, and deals in whistling air his empty blows. His match is sought, but through the trembling band not one dares answer to the proud demand. Presuming of his force with sparkling eyes, already he devours the promised prize. He claims the bull with awless insolence, and having seized his horns, accosts the prince. If none my matchless valor dares oppose, how long shall Dares wait his dastard foes? Permit me, chief, permit without delay to lead this uncontested gift away. The crowd assents, and with redoubled cries, for the proud challenger demands the prize. End of Book 5, Part 1. Book 5, Part 2 of the Aeneid. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joseph Early, Falls Church, Virginia. The Aeneid by Publius Virgilius Maro. Translated by John Dryden. Book 5, Games and a Conflagration. Part 2. Acestes, fired with just disdain, to see the palm usurped without a victory, reproached Entellus thus, who sate beside, and heard and saw, unmoved,
the Trojans' pride. Once, but in vain, a champion of renown, so tamely can you bear the ravish'd crown. A prize in triumph borne before your sight, and shun for fear the danger of the fight? Where is our Eryx now, the boasted name, the god who taught your thundering arm the game? Where now your baffled honour? Where the spoil that filled your house, and fame that filled our isle? Entellus thus: my soul is still the same, unmoved with fear, and moved with martial fame. But my chill blood is curdled in my veins, and scarce the shadow of a man remains. Oh, could I turn to that fair prime again, that prime of which this boaster is so vain! The brave, who this decrepit age defies, should feel my force without the promis'd prize. He said, and rising at the word, he threw 2 ponderous gauntlets down in open view, gauntlets which Eryx wont in fight to wield, and sheath'd his hand with in the listed field. With fear and wonder seiz'd the crowd beholds the gloves of death, with 7 distinguish'd folds of tough bull hides. The space within is spread with iron, or with loads of heavy lead. Dares himself was daunted at the sight, renounced his challenge, and refused to fight. Astonish'd at their weight, the hero stands, and poised the ponderous engines in his hands. What had your wonder, said Entellus, been, had you the gauntlets of Alcides seen, or view'd the stern debate on this unhappy green? These which I bear your brother Eryx bore, still mark'd with batter'd brains and mingled gore. With these he long sustained the Herculean arm, and these I wielded while my blood was warm. This languaged frame, while better spirits fed, ere age unstrung my nerves, or time o'ersnow'd my head. But if the challenger these arms refuse, and cannot wield their weight, or dare not use, if great Aeneas and Acestes join in his request, these gauntlets I resign. Let us with equal arms perform the fight, and let him leave to fare, since I resign my right. This said, Entellus for the strife prepares. Stripp'd of his quilted coat, his body bears. Composed of mighty bones and brawn he stands, a goodly towering object on the sands. Then just Aeneas equal arms supplied, which round their shoulders to their wrists they tied. Both on the tiptoe stand at full extent, their arms aloft, their bodies inly bent. Their heads from aiming blows they bear afar, with clashing gauntlets then provoke the war. One on his youth and pliant limbs relies, one on his sinews and his giant size. The last is still with age, his motion slow. He heaves for breath, he staggers to and fro, and clouds of issuing smoke his nostrils loudly blow. Yet, equal in success, they ward, they strike. Their ways are different, but their art alike. Before, behind, the blows are dealt. Around their hollow sides the rattling thumps resound. A storm of strokes, well meant, with fury flies, and errs about their temples, ears, and eyes. Nor always errs, for oft the gauntlet draws a sweeping stroke along the crackling jaws, heavy with age. Entellus stands his ground, but with his warping body wards the wound. His hand and watchful eye keep even pace, while Dares traverses and shifts his place. And, like a captain who beleaguers round some strong-built castle on a rising ground, views all th' approaches with observing eyes, this and that other part in vain he tries, and more on industry than force relies. With hands on high, Entellus threats the foe, but Dares watch'd the motion from below, and slipp'd aside, and shunn'd the long descending blow. Entellus wastes his forces on the wind, and thus deluded of the stroke design'd, headlong and heavy fell; his ample breast and weighty limbs his ancient mother press'd. So falls a hollow pine that long had stood on Ida's height, or Erymanthus' wood, torn from the roots. The diff'ring nations rise, and shouts and mingled murmurs rend the skies. Acestus runs with eager haste to raise the fallen companion of his youthful days. Dauntless he rose, and to the fight return'd. With shame his glowing cheeks, his eyes with fury burn'd. Disdain and conscious virtue fir'd his breast, and with redoubled force his foe he press'd. He lays on load with either hand amain, and headlong drives the Trojan o'er the plain, nor stops, nor stays, nor rest, nor breath allows, but storm of stroke descend about his brows, a rattling tempest and a hail of blows. But now the prince, who saw the wild increase of wounds, commands the combatants to cease, and bounds Entellus' wrath, and bids the peace. First to the Trojans, spent with toil, he came, and sooth'd his sorrow for the suffer'd shame. "What fury seiz'd my friend?" "The gods," said he, "to him propitious, and averse to thee, have giv'n his arms superior force to thine. 'Tis madness to contend with strength divine." The gauntlet fight thus ended, from the shore his faithful friends unhappy Dares bore. His mouth and nostrils pour'd a purple flood, and pounded teeth came rushing with his blood. Faintly he stagger'd thro' the hissing throng, and hung his head, and trail'd his legs along. The sword and casque are carried by his train, but with his foe the palm and ox remain. The champion then before Aeneas came, proud of his prize, but prouder of his fame. "O goddess born, and you, Dardanian host, mark with attention, and forgive my boast. Learn what I was, by what remains, and know from what impending fate you sav'd my foe." Sternly he spoke, and then confronts the bull, and, on his ample forehead aiming full, the deadly stroke descending pierc'd the skull. Down drops the beast, nor needs a second wound, but sprawls in pangs of death, and spurns the ground. Then thus: "In Dares' stead I offer this, Eryx, accept a noble sacrifice. Take the last gift my weather'd arms can yield. Thy gauntlets I resign, and here renounce the field." This done, Aeneas orders for the close the strife of archers with contending bows. The mast Sergestus' shatter'd galley bore, with his own hands he raises on the shore. A fluttering dove upon the top they tie, the living mark at which their arrows fly. The rival archers in a line advance, their turn of shooting to receive from chance. A helmet holds their names, the lots are drawn. On the first scroll was read Hippocoon. The people shout; upon the next was found young Mnestheus, late with naval honours crown'd. The third contain'd Eurytion's noble name, thy brother Pandarus, and next in fame, whom Pallas urg'd the treaty to confound, and send among the gifts a feather'd wound. Acestes in the bottom last remain'd, whom not his age from youthful sports restrain'd. Soon all with vigour bend their trusty bows, and from the quiver each his arrow chose. Hippocoon's was the first, with forceful sway it flew, and whizzing cut the liquid way. Fix'd in the mast, the feather'd weapon stands. The fearful pigeon flutters in her bands, and the tree trembled, and the shouting cries of the pleased people rend the vaulted skies. Then Mnestheus to the head his arrow drove, with lifted eyes, and took his aim above, but made a glancing shot, and miss'd the dove, yet miss'd so narrow that he cut the cord which fastened by the foot the flitting bird. The captive thus releas'd, away she flies, and beats with clapping wings the yielding skies. His bow already bent, Ereuthyon stood, and having first invok'd his brother god, his winged shaft with eager haste he sped. The fatal message reach'd her as she fled. She leaves her life aloft, she strikes the ground, and renders back the weapon in the wound. Acestes, grudging at his lot, remains without a prize to gratify his pains, yet shooting upward sends his shaft, to show an archer's art, and boast his twanging bow. The feather'd arrow gave a dire portent, and later augurs judge from this event. Chaf'd by the speed, it fir'd, and as it flew, a trail of following flames ascending drew. Kindling they mount, and mark the shiny way across the skies as falling meteors play, and vanish into wind, or in a blaze decay. The Trojans and Sicilians wildly stare, and trembling turn their wonder into prayer. The Dardan prince put on a smiling face, and strain'd Acestes with a close embrace. Then, honouring him with gifts above the rest, turn'd the bad omen, nor his fears confess'd. The gods, said he, this miracle have wrought, and order'd you the prize without the lot. Accept this goblet, rough with figured gold, which Thracian Cisseus gave my sire of old. This pledge of ancient amity receive, which to my second sire I justly give. He said, and with the trumpet's cheerful sound proclaim'd him victor, and with laurel crown'd. Nor good Ereuthyon envied him the prize, though he transfix'd the pigeon in the sky. Who cut the line with second gifts was graced, the third was his whose arrow pierced the mast. The chief, before the games were wholly done, called Periphantes tutor to his son, and whispered thus: with speed Ascanius find, and if his childish troop be ready joined, on horseback let him grace his grandsire's day, and lead his equals armed in just array. He said, and calling out, the cirque he clears, the crowd withdrawn, an open plain appears. And now the noble youths of form divine advance before their fathers in a line. The riders grace the steeds with glory shine. Thus, marching on in military pride, shouts of applause resound from side to side. Their casques adorned with laurel wreaths they wear, each brandishing aloft a cornel spear. Some at their backs their gilded quivers bore, their chains of burnished gold hung down before. 3 graceful troops they formed upon the green, 3 graceful leaders at their head were seen. 12 followed every chief, and left a space between. The first young Priam led, a lovely boy, whose grandsire was the unhappy king of Troy. His race in after times was known to fame, new honours adding to the Latian name. And well the royal boy his Thracian steed became, white were the fetlocks of his feet before, and on his front a snowy star he bore. Then beauteous Attis, with Iulus bred, of equal age, the second squadron led. The last in order, but the first in place, first in the lovely features of his face, rode fair Ascanius on a fiery steed, Queen Dido's gift, and of the Tyrian breed. Sure coursers for the rest the king ordains, with golden bits adorned and purple reins. The pleased spectators peals of shouts renew, and all the parents in the children view them, make their motions, and their sprightly grace. And hopes and fears alternate in their face. The unfledged commanders and their martial train first make the circuit of the sandy plain around their sires, and at the appointed sign, drawn up in beauteous order, form a line. The second signal sounds, the troop divides in three distinguished parts with three distinguished guides. Again they close and once again disjoin. In troop to troop opposed and line to line they meet, they wheel, they throw their darts afar with harmless rage and well-dissembled war. Then in a rout the mingled bodies run, flying they follow and pursuing shun. Broken they break and rallying they renew, in other forms the military shew. At last, in order, under stern, they join, and march together in a friendly line. And, as the Cretan labyrinth of old, with wandering ways and many a winding fold, involved the weary feet without redress in a round error which denied recess. So fought the Trojan boys in warlike play, turned and returned, and still a different way. Thus dolphins in the deep each other chase in circles, when they swim around the watery race. This game, these carousels, Ascanius taught, and building Alba to the Latins brought. Show'd what he learn'd, the Latin sires impart to their succeeding sons the graceful art. From these imperial Rome receiv'd the game, which Troy, the youths, the Trojan troop, they name. Thus far the sacred sports they celebrate, but Fortune soon resum'd her ancient hate. For while they pay their dead his annual dues, those envied rites Saturnian Juno views, and sends the goddess of the various foe to try new methods of revenge below. Supplies the winds to wing her airy way, where in the port secure the navy lay. Swiftly fair Iris down her arch descends, and undiscern'd her fatal voyage ends. She saw the gathering crowd, and gliding thence the desert shore, and fleet without defence. The Trojan matrons on the sands alone, with sighs and tears, Anchises' death bemoan. Then turning to the sea their weeping eyes, their pity to themselves renews their cries. Alas, said one, what oceans yet remain for us to sail, what labours to sustain? All take the word, and with a general groan implore the gods for peace and places of their own. The goddess, great in mischief, views their pains, and in a woman's form her heavenly limbs restrains. In face and shape both Beroe she becomes, Doricles' wife, a venerable dame, once blessed with riches and a mother's name. Thus changed amidst the crying crowd she ran, mixed with the matrons, and these words began. O wretched we, whom not the Grecian pow'r nor flames destroyed in Troy's unhappy hour! O wretched we, reserv'd by cruel fate beyond the ruins of the sinking state! Now 7 revolving years are wholly run since this improsperous voyage we begun. Since toss'd from shores to shores, from lands to lands, Inhospitable rocks and barren sands, Wand'ring in exile thro' the stormy sea, We search in vain for flying Italy. Now, cast by fortune on this kindred land, What should our rest and rising walls withstand, Or hinder here to fix our banish'd band? O country lost, and gods redeem'd in vain, If still in endless exile we remain! Shall we no more the Trojan walls renew, Or streams of some dissembled Simois view? Haste, join with me, th' unhappy fleet consume. Cassandra bids, and I declare her doom. In sleep I saw her, she supplied my hands. For this I more than dreamt, with flaming brands. With these, said she, these wand'ring ships destroy. These are your fatal seats, and this your Troy. Time calls you now, the precious hour employ. Slack not the good presage, while heav'n inspires Our minds to dare, and gives the ready fires. See, Neptune's altars minister their brands. The god is pleased, the god supplies our hands. And from the pile a flaming fire she drew, And, toss'd in air, amidst the galleys threw. Wrapp'd in amaze, the matrons wildly stare. Then Prygo, reverenced for her hoary hair, Prygo, the nurse of Priam's numerous race. No Beroe this, though she belies her face. What terrors from her frowning front arise! Behold a goddess in her ardent eyes. What rays around her heav'nly face are seen! Mark her majestic voice, and more than mortal mien. Beroe, but now I left, whom pin'd with pain Her age and anguish from these rites detain. She said. The matrons, seiz'd with new amaze, Roll their malignant eyes, and on the navy gaze. They fear and hope, and neither part obey. They hope the fated land, but fear the fatal way. The goddess, having done her task below, Mounts up on equal wings, and bends the painted bow. Struck with the sight, and seiz'd with rage divine, The matrons prosecute their mad design. They shriek aloud, they snatch with impious hands The food of altars, fires, and flaming brands. Green boughs and saplings mingled in their haste, And smoking torches on the ships they cast. The flame, unstopped at first, more fury gains, And Vulcan rides at large with loosened reins. Triumphant to the painted sterns he soars, And seizes in this way the banks and crackling oars. Eumelus was the first the news to bear, While yet they crowd the rural theatre. Then what they hear is witnessed by their eyes. A storm of sparkles and of flames arise. Ascanius took the alarm, while yet he led His early warriors on his prancing steed, And, spurring on, his equals soon o'erpass'd. Nor could his frighted friends reclaim his haste. Soon as the royal youth appear'd in view, He sent his voice before him as he flew. What madness moves you, matrons, to destroy The last remainders of unhappy Troy? Not hostile fleets, but your own hopes you burn, And on your friends your fatal fury turn. Behold your own Ascanius. While he said, he drew his glittering helmet from his head, In which the youths to sportful arms fled. By this Aeneas and his train appear'd, And now the women, seiz'd with shame and fear, Dispers'd to woods and caverns take their flight, Abhor their actions, and avoid the light. Their friends acknowledge, and their error find, And shake the goddess from their altar mind. Not so the raging fires their fury cease, But lurking in the scenes with seeming peace, Work on their way amidst the smouldering tows. sure in destruction, but in motion slow. The silent plague through the green timber eats, and vomits out a tardy flame by fits. Down to the keels and upward to the sails the fire descends, or mounts, but still prevails. Nor buckets poured, nor strength of human hand can the victorious element withstand. The pious hero rends his robe, and throws to heavens his hand, and with his friends his vows. O Jove, he cried, if prayers can yet have place, if thou abhorrest not all the Dardan race, if any spark of pity still remain, if gods are gods and not invoked in vain, yet spare the relics of the Trojan train, yet from the flames our burning vessels free, or let thy fury fall alone on me. At this devoted head thy thunder throw, and send the willing sacrifice below. Scarce had he said, when southern storms arise, from pole to pole the forky lightning flies. Loud rattling shakes the mountains and the plain. Heaven bellies downward and descends in rain. Whole sheets of water from the clouds are sent, which hissing through the planks the flames prevent, and stop the fiery pest. 4 ships alone burnt to the waist, and for the fleet atone.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
But doubtful thoughts the hero's heart divide, if he should still in Sicily reside, forgetful of his fates, or tempt the main, in hope the promis'd Italy to gain. Then Notes, old and wise, to whom alone the will of heaven by Pallas was foreshown, versed in portents, experienced and inspired to tell events and what the fates required. Thus, while he stood, to neither part inclined, with cheerful words relieved his labouring mind. O goddess born, resigned in every state, with patience bear, with prudence push your fate. By suffering well our fortune we subdue, fly when she frowns, and when she calls, pursue. Your friend Acestes is of Trojan kind, to him disclose the secrets of your mind. Trust in his hands your old and useless train, too numerous for the ships which yet remain. The feeble, old, indulgent of their ease, the dames who dread the dangers of the seas, with all the dastard crew who dare not stand the shock of battle with your foes by land. Here you may build a common town for all, and from Acestes' name Acesta call.
Soon we will reach the lake.
The reasons, with his friend's experience join'd, encouraged much, but more disturbed his mind. 'Twas dead of night, when to his slumbering eyes his father's shade descended from the skies. And thus he spoke: "O more than vital breath, lov'd while I liv'd, and dear even after death! O son, in various toils and troubles toss'd, the King of heav'n employs my careful ghost on his command. The god, who sav'd from fire your flaming fleet, and heard your just desire, the wholesome counsel of your friend receive, and here the coward train and women leave. The chosen youth, and those who nobly dare, transport to tempt the dangers of the war. The stern Italians will their courage try, rough are their manners, and their minds are high. But first to Pluto's palace you shall go, and seek my shade among the blest below. For not with impious ghosts my soul remains, nor suffer'd with the damn'd perpetual pains, but breathes the living air of soft Elysian plains. The chaste Sibylla shall your steps convey, and blood of offered victims free the way. There shall you know what realms the gods assign, and learn the fates and fortunes of your line. But now, farewell, I vanish with the night, and feel the blast of heaven's approaching light," he said, and mix'd with shades, and took his airy flight. Whither so fast? The filial duty cried. And why, ah why, the wish'd embrace denied? He said, and rose, as holy zeal inspires. He rakes hot embers, and renews the fires. His country gods and Vesta then adores with cakes and incense, and their aid implores. Next for his friends and royal host he sent, reveal'd his vision and the gods' intent, with his own purpose. All, without delay, the will of Jove and his desires obey. They list with woman each degenerate name, who dares not hazard life for future fame. These they cashier; the brave remaining few, oars, banks, and cables half consum'd, renew. The prince designs a city with the plow, the lots their sev'ral tenements allow. This part is nam'd from Ilium, that from Troy, and the new king ascends the throne with joy. A chosen senate from the people draws, appoints the judges, and ordains the laws. Then on the top of Eryx they begin a rising temple to the Paphian queen. Anchises last is honour'd as a god. A priest is added, annual gifts bestow'd, and groves are planted round his blest abode. 9 days they pass in feasts, their temples crown'd, and fumes of incense in the fanes abound. Then from the south arose a gentle breeze, that curled the smoothness of the glassy sea. The rising winds a ruffling gale afford, and call the merry mariners aboard. Now loud laments along the shores resound, of parting friends in close embraces bound. The trembling women, the degenerate train, who shun the frightful dangers of the main. Even those desire to sail and take their share of the rough passage and the promis'd war, whom good Aeneas cheers, and recommends to their new master's care his fearful friends. On Eryx's altar 3 fat calves he lays, a lamb new fallen to the stormy seas. Then slips his hawsers and his anchors weighs. High on the deck the godlike hero stands, with olive crown, a charger in his hands. Then cast the reeking entrails in the brine, and pour'd the sacrifice of purple wine. Fresh gales arise, with equal strokes they vie, and brush the buxom seas, and o'er the billows fly. Meantime the mother goddess, full of fears, to Neptune thus address'd with tender tears: "The pride of Jove's imperious queen, the rage, the malice which no sufferings can assuage, compel me to do these prayers, since neither fate, nor time, nor pity can remove her hate. E'en Jove is thwarted by his haughty wife, still vanquish'd, yet she renews the strife. As if 'twere little to consume the town, which awed the world and wore th' imperial crown, she prosecutes the ghost of Troy with pains, and gnaws even to the bones the last remains. Let her the causes of her hatred tell, but you can witness its effects too well. You saw the storm she raised on Libyan floods, that mixed the mountain billows with the clouds, when, bribing Aeolus, she shook the main, and moved rebellion in your watery reign. With fury she possessed the Dardan dames, to burn their fleet with execrable flames, and forced Aeneas, when his ships were lost, to leave his followers on the foreign coast. For what remains, your godhead I implore, and trust my son to your protecting power. If neither Jove nor fate's decree withstand, secure this passage to the Latian land." Then thus the mighty ruler of the main: "What may not Venus hope from Neptune's reign? My kingdom claims your birth; my late defence of your endanger'd fleet may claim your confidence. nor less by land than sea my deeds declare. How much your lov'd Aeneas is my care. Thee, Xanthus, and thee, Simois, I attest, your Trojan troops, when proud Achilles press'd, and drove before him headlong on the plain, and dash'd against the walls the trembling train, when floods were fill'd with bodies of the slain, when crimson Xanthus, doubtful of its way, stood up on ridges to behold the sea. New heaps came tumbling in and chok'd his way. When your Aeneas fought, but fought with odds of force unequal, and unequal gods. I spread a cloud before the victor's sight, sustain'd the vanquish'd, and secur'd his flight. Even then secur'd him, when I sought with joy the vow'd destruction of ungrateful Troy. My will's the same, fair goddess, fear no more. Your fleet shall safely gain the Latian shore. Their lives are given, one destin'd head alone shall perish, and for the multitudes atone. Thus, having arm'd with hopes her anxious mind, his finny team Saturnian Neptune join'd, then adds the foamy bridle to their jaws, and to the loosen'd reins permits the laws. High on the waves his azure car he guides, its axles thunder, and the sea subsides, and the smooth ocean rolls her silent tides. The tempests fly before their father's face, trains of inferior gods his triumph grace, and monster whales before their master play, and choirs of Tritons crowd the watery way. The marshal'd powers in equal troops divide. To right and left the gods his better side enclose, and on the worse the nymphs and Nereids ride. Now smiling hope with sweet vicissitude within the hero's mind his joys renew. He calls to raise the masts, the sheets display, the cheerful crew with diligence obey. They scud before the wind, and sail in open sea. Ahead of all the master pilot steers, and as he leads the following navy veers. The steeds of night had travell'd half the sky, the drowsy rowers on their benches lie, when the soft god of sleep with easy flight descends, and draws behind a trail of light. Thou, Palinurus, art his destined prey, to thee alone he takes his fatal way. Dire dreams to thee in iron sleep he bears, and lighting on the prow the form of Phorbas wears. Then thus the traitor god began his tale: The winds, my friend, inspire a pleasing gale. The ships without thy care securely sail. Now steal an hour of sweet repose, and I will take the rudder and thy room supply. To whom the yawning pilot, half asleep: Me dost thou bid to trust the treacherous deep? The harlot smiles of her dissembling faith, and to her faith commit the Trojan race. Shall I believe the siren south again, and oft betray'd not know the monster main? He said, his fasten'd hands the rudder keep, and fix'd on heav'n his eyes repel invading sleep. The god was wroth, and at his temples threw a branch in Lethe dipp'd, and drunk with Stygian dew. The pilot, vanquish'd by the power divine, soon closed his swimming eyes, and lay supine. Scarce were his limbs extended at their length, the god, insulting with superior strength, fell heavy on him, plunged him in the sea, and with the stern the rudder tore away. Headlong he fell, and struggling in the main, cried out for helping hands, but cried in vain. The victor demon mounts obscure in air, while the ship sails without the pilot's care. On Neptune's faith the floating fleet relies, but what the man forsook, the god supplies. And o'er the dangerous deep secure the navy flies. Guides by the Sirens' cliffs a shelfy coast, long infamous for ships and sailors lost and white with bones. The impetuous ocean roars and rocks rebellow from the sounding shores. The watchful hero felt the knocks and found the tossing vessel sailed on shoaly ground. Sure of his pilot's loss, he takes himself the helm and steers aloof and shuns the shelf. Inly he grieved, and groaning from the breast, deplor'd his death, and thus his pain express'd. For faith repos'd on seas, and on the flatt'ring sky, thy naked corpse is doom'd on shores unknown to lie. End of Book 5.
one whose heart pumps the blood of Sparta. Though my sight is gone, I remember your scent. I shall hunt you down through eternity if I must, till I rid this earth of your foul smell.
Why do I have to take the heat for my father? Come on, man. Cut me some slack.